Welcome to the Fuck Fentanyl podcast. I'm Luis Romero. I'm the Fuck Fentanyl guy. We got another follow-up podcast with Justin over here. How you doing, Justin?
Doing great. How you doing, Luis?
I'm doing great, man. You are actually also a former manager of SD Sober Living.
Yes, I am. I was a manager at the Coretta House over in Santee.
Yeah. You just recently left?
Yeah. I moved on from sober living onto the next phase of my life. Me and my girl are now renting a house together, not too far from that house in Santee. Just kind of, moving on to the next thing. So
Nice, man.
nice.
So, well, can we just do a little background? I know you did my podcast before, but where'd you grow up and all that?
So I grew up. I'm from San Diego.
Yeah.
I was born at Grossmont and lived in El Cajon, Lakeside area, and then moved up to Northern California when I was like 9, and we were up there for about 10 years. I came back right after high school, and I've pretty much been, in El Cajon, like Santee area ever since. Pretty much East County, San Diego.
Yeah.
So
East County.
no.
So and what led you to SD Sober Living?
Nobody finds their way into sober living by not going through some other life choices.
Absolutely.
That's valid. I started dabbling with drugs and alcohol while I was living up in Northern California, getting into trouble, got kicked out of a couple different schools. The first time I got arrested, I was like 14 years old, got arrested for weed. It was way before it was all legal and everything.
Right.
First time I found myself homeless was up there. I was like 17. Ended up coming back to San Diego and just kind of struggled. I was a total like burnout stoner for years and years and years. Dabbled with a lot of other stuff. I had like a big phase with like ecstasy and doing like pharmaceutical pills, whatever kind of, I'm a total garbage can drug user. If it came across my path, I was going to try it. Started, coming to East County, there's a lot of meth out there. And so I just started dabbling more with that. Never really was like a huge drinker, but I had phases where I partied a lot. And I've never, I'm just kind of a full-fledged, like, full steam ahead with whatever I'm doing. And usually it's not exactly pretty, Found myself homeless, getting arrested all the time for, minor stuff. It was always like, oh, possession. Okay, well, now I have a court date and I don't go. So now I have a warrant. And, it was just like this perpetual thing for years, Finally, the last time I was in jail, I was just kind of like over it, At the time I was 30 years old and I was like, I've got to do something different, And that's what I told the judge. I was like, I'm either going to keep going this way or I'm going to do something else. And I'd already kind of made some phone calls to a couple different programs. I was kind of checking it out. I ended up going to Pathfinders. I was ordered to get into a 90-day program. Ended up going to detox, going to Pathfinders, and this was after years of being homeless and meth addiction. I was an IV meth user and heroin addict.
Yeah.
Fentanyl. I tried to stay away from the fentanyl, but it was
Get away.
yeah, it was like heroin kind of disappeared off the streets.
Yeah.
And everybody was doing fentanyl, and I stayed away from it as much as I could, but there was also a lot of times where it was like, I'm either going to do fentanyl or I'm going to be sick as a dog. So I, of course I chose to use fentanyl. Went to detox, got separated from all of that. Went to Pathfinders and went to sober living for the very first time. And that was where I met Nick. He was managing a house before he started his business.
Yeah.
And I met Nick. He had this little house. It's like there was only like 4 of us in the house over in La Mesa, and me and him became buddies, and I stayed clean for a little while. I put together about 9 months, and during which time he's opened up his first house. And so I was one of the very first people to move into the house he has over on Prospect.
Yes.
Santee.
Yeah.
Moved in there, and then I started seeing this girl. She was not in recovery.
No.
And I made some choices.
Yeah.
Decided to do a little more research and see what kind of fun I could have, and
Yeah.
it wasn't really that fun.
No.
And the consequences I faced for that was I got removed. I got kicked out of that house, and Nick had like kind of tried to give me chances. He's like, come on, dude. Like, I was honest with him. I told him, I'd relapsed and everything. And he gave me a chance to like get it back together.
Yeah.
But when I wasn't showing that I was going to do that, he had to let me go.
I see.
And I struggled for a few months after that, until I managed to get a day. And I got another day, and I just get, it was just like a one day at a time thing, and I did that, and I've been clean ever since. I just celebrated 3 years, 2 months ago.
Nice, man.
And and I went on to a couple other sober livings.
Yeah.
And then Nick reached out to me. He said, I'm looking for an assistant manager. And the first time he approached me about it, I was at this other sober living, and I had just landed my own room, which is like unheard of in sober living.
Absolutely.
Like, yeah, small room, but it was like my own. I was like, I
Yeah.
don't know, dude. Like, I'm kind of liking where I'm at.
Yeah.
And then there was a change of management there, and things, the dynamics of that house changed. And then he approached me again. He's like, look, I'm looking for an assistant manager. I want it to be you. I think that you would be a great fit for this house. And, so I agreed to it, and I went over and I took over the assistant manager position at the Prospect house over in Santee.
Yeah.
And I was there for a while, and then the at that time manager at the Coretta house was moving on to the next part of his life. And so I took that position when it opened up.
I see.
And I was there for a little while. I was there for it's like 8 months or something like that.
Okay.
Before I had the opportunity to move on to the next part of my life. And at that point, I've been in sober living for, better part of 3 years. It was time for me to move on.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But sober living in general gave me the opportunity to like stay removed from, drugs and alcohol.
Yeah.
And be around like-minded people that have similar stories and backgrounds and similar goals moving forward, And so when I was a manager, and now I'm like in this position where, I'm kind of like, I'm the example, I'm trying to, kind of be a good role model. And there was others that were that for me, you know what I mean? Even people that were clients at the houses I was managing, or they haven't even been clean or sober as long as I have. But when you get people that are all trying to incorporate these principles into our lives,
Right.
and that's the beautiful thing about sober living is like, not everybody's gonna do the self work. You know what I mean? There's always a handful that are, and a handful that just have no interest in it. They're just there because it's a place, and it's not on the streets. And then there's people in between. But the ones that really are trying to change, you know what I mean, have been just invaluable in my own life. You know what I mean? I'm extremely good friends with a lot of them. Some of the best friends I've ever had in my life, came from being in sober living with them, or being a part of, me and a couple of the other managers from SD sober living. We may not have been in the houses at the same time.
Yeah.
They're some of the best friends that I have today.
Absolutely.
You
guys have a little brotherhood in there.
Oh yeah. I tell Sean all the time, I'm the little brother he never wanted, but sober living and, and just being sober, to making the decision to be sober, to start with a day, continue getting one day at a time, go into a place that's an abnormal state for any addict or alcoholic. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You get a lot of people like myself that come from living on the streets. I lived in a tent on the side of the freeway for years. And so moving into a house where, okay, I've got a curfew, I've got a chore I'm supposed to do every day. But all of those, they're minor things. But at the time, they seem like these big changes, and they are. That's an abnormal routine for somebody like me to adapt to. You know what I mean? But they were essentially like a blueprint. You know what I mean? To moving on with the rest of my life and actually having some sense of a healthy routine. You know what I mean? And like, I owe a lot to sober livings in general, and especially to SD sober living. You know what I mean? Giving me the chance to be a manager, showing the faith that he had in me. You know what I mean? To step in and do the job, and I'm grateful for that. I did everything I could to do a good job, and I'm sure I could have done better in some areas, but sure,
Progress.
yeah, progress, not perfection, right?
That's right.
So.
Awesome, man. Is there any advice you give to somebody that's like, try to enter recovery and all that?
Just get a day, I mean, that's always been one huge thing for me, is it's a one day at a time thing. I'm one of those people that I always carried a lot of regret for the things I did in the past, and I carried a lot of fear, for what was coming tomorrow. And when I learned to stay grounded in the present moment and just do what I needed to do to stay clean and sober today, one day at a time, not pick up, not do, and not just pick up drugs, but like change the behavior, not go, I was a booster, not stealing from stores. The last time I stole from a store, I had a side job going on, and I didn't have any money, and I needed material to get the job done that day and get paid. I went and stole the material I needed from Home Depot, and then went back later on that day after I got paid and asked for a manager and paid for it. Had all the things that I had stolen, grabbed them, showed her. I said, I stole these things this morning. I'm here. I'd like to pay for them. She was like, what?
What?
But things like that, just it's not all going to happen overnight, but those little actions you take to change your way of thinking and your way of behaving on a day-to-day basis, it's worth it. You know what I mean? It's an incredible way of life if you just commit to it. So
That's right, dude. Thank you, dude. Well, once again, I really appreciate you, man. You're an excellent representation of SD sober living and recovery community, man. And thank you so much for coming on here, dude.
thanks for having me.
Hell yeah. All right. Well, fuck that. No.